tell you all what you need to know about the epic of Gilgamesh. The oldest story told he was a superhuman being on a superhuman mission. He's looking for a way to nurture his condition. He had great power, let it go to his head. Took advantage of his people and let the rumor spread. The gods got mad, he didn't follow their plan, but he was 2/3 God and 1/3 man. See, Gilgamesh had a friend, and Kira was his name. They caused so much trouble, but he took the blame. The gods took action, and so they blew. And Kira with an awful lethal flew. On his last days alive, about the afterlife he dreamed. He told Gilgamesh about how it all seemed. Dust is their food, and clay is their meat. They see no light, eternal defeat. Kira died, and Gilgamesh can't mind that his friend was gone, he was next in line. Gilgamesh didn't want to face the brutality, so he went on a journey for immortality. He killed lions and threw scorpions he passed. He walked 12 weeks of donkeys since so last. He reached the garden of gods a man weeks ago. Back to Shinabi where he let all his fury. Destroyed the protection from the waters of death. To make up for his actions, he used all his breath to push the boat alone, and eventually they got to the fishing where they go the far away. They said their hellos, and Gilgamesh started asking, tell me, Utnapishtim, how your life is everlasting. Utnapishtim said, well, you saved me from a storm, making me and my wife the only living over form. We were mortals. In our time past, by the mouth of the rivers, we will always laugh. Gilgamesh said, what can I do to be immortal? How? There must be some kind of portal. Utnapishtim said, okay, let's put you to the test. You barely didn't sleep for 7 nights without rest. Gilgamesh tried to stay awake, but he was too weak. He woke up, saw red, he just did too far weak. But the bishop said there's one less thing you can do. It's a mystery of the gods. What I'm telling you, there's a plant underwater that will ruin your hands. Inside it, there's all what your soul demands. Gilgamesh doesn't wait, hands for his last hope. Tied held his own to his feet with the rope. Took the plant and held it in his own hand. He was headed on his way back to his homeland. But when Gilgamesh stopped for a cool water well, a serpent nearby sensed the sweet smell. He jumped out, taking the flower away. Gilgamesh sat down and wept in dismay. I guess there's no use running from mortality. I guess I'm infected with normality. I'm going back to Europe to claim my glory. My immortality's within my story.
Okay, so this is the lecture on the epic of Gilgamesh. So our lecture today is on the epic of Gilgamesh. Sorry, I forgot my eyeglasses. Our lecture today is on the epic of Gilgamesh. Before we discuss the themes, meaning, and significance of this epic, few words on the ancient peoples of Mesopotamia, the background of the epic, and epic genre in general. Mesopotamia, roughly present-day Iraq and parts of northeast Syria, a name given by the Greeks to the land between the two rivers, Tigris and the Euphrates, بلاد ما بين النهرين دجلة والفرات. This part in ancient Mesopotamia was called by its own inhabitants the land of Sumer and Akkad. On the Euphrates lies Uruk, one of the oldest cities in the Near East. Gilgamesh was a Sumerian king of Uruk. The Sumerians were the earliest settlers in Mesopotamia. Their language cannot be affiliated to any language we know. They were the first inventors of writing, cuneiform script, al-khat al-mismari, you find it on your fly sheet. They wrote on clay tablets, and they were urban people who lived in fortified cities. Their land was divided into small kingdoms. Together with the Sumerians lived another group, the Akkadians, named after their city, Akkad. Their language was different from that of the Sumerians, for they spoke a language which belonged to the same linguistic family as Arabic and Hebrew, called Semitic, al-Lughat al-Samiyya. The Akkadians came from a different cultural background than the Sumerians, and their peaceful cultural interaction in the area lasted for 1,000 years. The Akkadian rule was predominant in Mesopotamia in 2000 before Christ. their language replaced the Sumerian language as both the official and the spoken language of the country. The Epic of Gilgamesh was recited for nearly 3 millennia. Modern generation came to know about Gilgamesh only after the first cuneiform fragments of the story were excavated in 1853 at Nineveh from the library of the last great Assyrian king Ashur-banipal, who reigned in the 7th century before Christ. From the Sumerian king list, we do know there was an historical Gilgamesh. He reigned sometime between 3000 and 2500 before Christ in the city of Uruk near the Euphrates in what is now southern Iraq. Gilgamesh became, after his death, a hero of many tales. In these tales, he is given a semi-divine and superhuman features. Several of these tales were fixed in writing in the Sumerian language. Later on, 5 came down to us as unconnected different stories about the same hero. 1,000 years after the hero's death, these tales were joined together into literary whole written in Akkadian. The most standard version of the text is written on 12 clay tablets. The text of the standard version is partly destroyed, and some passages remain obscure. The discovery of some 50 fragments of the epic in various sites of ancient Near East enabled scholars to fill some of the gaps and to improve our understanding of the text. After this brief introduction to the ancient peoples of Mesopotamia and the background of the epic, few words about epic genre in general. Epic poetry may first be defined as heroic poetry, a poetry which records the deeds of heroes. As such, epic poetry is found in almost all great literatures of the world. But epic poetry has other common characteristics which we may well consider here. First of all, epic poetry is often found when cultures are first structured or restructured. They are often associated with the early stage of a literary tradition. Secondly, epic poetry is often a poetry of celebration. It celebrates the early deeds of individuals or tribes or peoples or cities. The Epic of Gilgamesh, for example, might just as well be called the Epic of Uruk, for it celebrates the city almost as much as its famous king. Epic poetry is often patriotic in tone, proud of its ethnic identity. Thirdly, epic poetry is often backward-looking. It describes not contemporary events or reality, but looks back to a heroic past to days gone by. In Gilgamesh, we are told many times that this is a tale of long ago, a tale of ancestors and of a golden age. Epic poetry, therefore, is often an evocation of a great past, a recreation of a golden age of heroism and great human achievements. Gilgamesh and the Odyssey, which you will also be reading this semester, constitute a journey of manhood, which, through the use of various literal values, transmit the values of their respective societies. Both stories are narrative poems about an epic journey. They make use of a storytelling trick called flashback. Flashbacks help in making the story more interesting and draw the reader in the story. Repetition is another technique. It's used to emphasize epithets, similes, and speeches. Repetition makes the imagination open to suggestion, which can lead to an interesting implications as to the meaning of the text. But why are we reading this epic today? How does Gilgamesh's quest for immortality concern us today? How does Gilgamesh's spiritual change affect the way we look at ourselves and our society? What is heroism? What is the meaning of victory? What is maturity? How can a human, in the midst of all failure and losses, still reach contentment and be at peace? What is the meaning of victory in defeat? In fact, there are many interpretations for the Epic of Gilgamesh: the psychoanalytical, the gender, the sociological, the mystical, etc. I'm going to adopt the, quote, existential, unquote, interpretation as presented by Rivka Harris, Stephen Mitchell, Benjamin R. Foster, and others. I leave it to your professors to pursue the issue of interpretation in your classes. After all, CS is an exercise in analysis and interpretation. Gilgamesh, the king of Uruk, is described at the beginning of the epic as a powerful king, 2/3 God and 1/3 man. He is endowed with human and superhuman qualities. He abuses his power in many ways. Quote, Gilgamesh sounds the tocsin for his amusement. His arrogance has no bounds by day or night. No son is left with his father, for Gilgamesh takes them all, even the children. His lust leaves no virgin to her lover, neither the warrior's daughter, nor the wife of the noble. Yet, this is the shepherd of the city, wise, comely, and resolute, unquote, page 62 in your text. This is how the theme of kingship is presented at the beginning of the epic: power and mastery. The king is abusing his subjects. There is an essential imbalance in the city. The man of unsurpassable courage has become a monster of selfishness. Enkidu was created as a solution to the problems brought on by Gilgamesh's extraordinary nature. He's sent on a mission from the gods who want things to get better in Uruk. How does Enkidu, the wild man, fit into the dynamic spiritual growth of the hero? Several themes come into the picture and intermingle here: primitiveness and civilization, the power of eros, friendship, the role of women, heroism, mortality and immortality, fate and destiny, death and departure, man and the gods, and so on. In fact, I have been reading this epic for so many years. I'm not going to tell you how many years, you will know my age, and I always discover new meanings and themes. Enkidu lives and wanders in nature. He is in a state of primitiveness. A trapper sees him, tells his father, who sends him to Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh, as if he knew that Enkidu has to be tamed rather than captured, and the only way to civilize him is through the power of eros. The harlot Shamhat leads Enkidu to self-awareness of what is a human being. She facilitates Enkidu's socialization, taught him to love, eat, drink, and dress, and introduced him to human intercourse as such. Enkidu could no more resume his former life. His intimacy with the woman cancels his intimacy with nature. He has been transformed. The role of the woman here, the harlot then, is to teach and to lead to civilization. Enkidu's break with his former life among wild animals is first achieved through sexual relations and is completed through learning the ways of civilized life. Shamhat has the double role as a sexual creature and a maternal figure. She transformed Enkidu from one at home with nature and wild animals into a human being. She introduced him to civilization. This is how she accompanies him to Uruk. Having accomplished her mission, she is gone. The world of Uruk is out of balance because of Gilgamesh's excesses, and Enkidu has been created to restore that balance. They fight together. The fight between the two heroes, Gilgamesh and Enkidu, is such that they came to know each other more. It seems that Enkidu's humanization is complete when in Uruk he kneels before Gilgamesh and acknowledges his kingship. until Enkidu comes into the city and begins life under a king. He is still not wholly removed from his original condition. Only in Gilgamesh does he find counsel, and in counsel full humanity. Enkidu can now become the friend of Gilgamesh, and the story can move to what we may call the heroic phase. About the nature of friendship between Gilgamesh and Enkidu, I leave it to your professors in class to discuss it. I don't have time now. Gilgamesh listens to Enkidu. Gilgamesh listens to Enkidu interpreting dreams and advising him to deal justly with his people. But Gilgamesh is in his first heroic phase, arrogant, restless, anxious, and pensive at the same time. He addresses Enkidu with the following words, quote, "Where is the man who can clamber to heaven? Only the gods live forever with glorious Shamash. But as for us men, our days are numbered, our occupation is a breath of wind," unquote. Gilgamesh's fear of death is making him restless. Gilgamesh's fear of death is making him restless. Anxiety is leading to mobility. Gilgamesh wants to go to the land of the cedars. Quote, "I have not established my name stamped on bricks as my destiny decreed. Therefore, I will go to the country where the cedars is felled. I will set up my name in the place where the names of famous men are written. Yet, I will raise a monument to the gods." Two aspects are manifested here: Gilgamesh's pensive mood and his realization of the end of man, his desire for fame as a compensation for an imbalance in his being. The motive of this heroic journey is the desire for fame. Man has to have the gods at his side, but these gods do not satisfy man's natural quest for eternity. These gods of Mesopotamia have human qualities. They are standards of power rather than standards of goodness. Values are grounded in human existence: honor, fame, love of family, dialogue and discussion, pursuit of wisdom, realism, and above all, life in a city which completes all these values. Fate and destiny are indication that there is some sort of law in the universe, that we do not live in a world of chance or accident. This explains Gilgamesh's anxiety and restlessness and his desire to go to the forest and leave an enduring name. Gilgamesh implored the god Shamash to support him. Gilgamesh is also supported by his caring and divine mother, Ninsun. Humbaba, the guardian of the forest, is a figure of balance and a defender of the ecosystem. He is a monster, but has his appointed place in the divine order of things. Humbaba is defeated. He asks for mercy, but Enkidu persuades Gilgamesh to kill him, so Enkidu is morally responsible. Gilgamesh is now more powerful than ever, and he goes further as a mortal to reject Ishtar and humiliate her. Gilgamesh, a mortal, rejects a goddess, and he castigates her with a series of metaphors. Ishtar is infuriated and asks her father Anu to send the bull of heaven. Gilgamesh and Enkidu kill the bull of heaven, and the gods decide the death of Enkidu. Enkidu is now on his deathbed. He curses the harlot and the trapper, but declined when he was reminded by Shamash of the advantages of civilization. What is of utmost importance here is the dream of Enkidu, not only because it reflects the Mesopotamian concept of afterlife, but as a turning point in Gilgamesh's progress towards maturity. We are now in Gilgamesh's second heroic phase. We encounter again the themes of death and departure, where death has become a reality and departure a means of discovering a new self and with it a new meaning of victory. Enkidu related his dream. Quote, "There is the house whose people sit in darkness. Dust is their food and clay their meat. I entered the house of dust, and I saw the kings of the earth, their crowns put away forever." Unquote. This is page 92 in your text. I'm not going to read it all. You read it alone. This is a picture of the afterlife in Mesopotamia, a dark underworld with miserable creatures eating clay and dust. And above all, kings and ordinary people will be the same. How would the powerful and arrogant Gilgamesh react to this reality? Gilgamesh wept. And his tears are now a beginning of a long journey towards reality. Gilgamesh is now starting to change his rebellious and arrogant attitude towards a more pensive and reflective mood. Gilgamesh says, quote, "Who is there in strong-walled Uruk who has wisdom like this? Strange things have been spoken. Why does your heart speak strangely? The dream is marvelous, but the terror is great. We must treasure the dream, whatever the terror, for the dream has shown that misery comes at last to the healthy man. The end of life is sorrow." Unquote, page 93 in your text. Gilgamesh started reflecting on the wisdom behind life and death. He called the dream marvelous while being aware of the terror of that reality. Gilgamesh is now not only an epic hero, but a philosophical hero as well. Enkidu dies after 12 days of agony, leaving Gilgamesh in grief. Now death is an intimate reality. It took Gilgamesh a while to acknowledge that his friend is dead. This is a tragic moment in the epic, though epics are not necessarily tragic. Death, once something to be defied, has become part of life. The proximity of death supplied the chief motive for his departure. Here comes the journey of maturity, as you see on your fly sheet. Abandoning all privileges and responsibilities, giving up his role as a warrior and king, reversing Enkidu's journey from wilderness to civilization, Gilgamesh puts on animal skin and leaves Uruk. This journey is different from his previous journey. There, in his first journey, he returned to Uruk, as you remember, full of himself, thinking that he was victorious. Well, didn't he kill Humbaba? Didn't he kill the bull of heaven? Didn't he defy Ishtar? Yes. That victory seemed now ephemeral and superficial. Fame and glory did not stop death and the realities that one has to face in life. He felt inside him a sense of loss and bereavement, which nothing could alleviate except another journey, but this time to seek knowledge, searching for his identity, and with it, the secret of life and death. Gilgamesh is anxious, roaming the wilderness, asking, "Must I die too?" This is not a rhetorical question. He really does not know the answer anymore. It is the question of a child at the threshold of adult awareness who is now faced with the concept of dying. Gilgamesh crosses many gates and thresholds in his journey to Utnapishtim, the only human who was given immortality. At the gate of the scorpion, he tells his story. He is grieved. His friend is dead, and he wants to search for Utnapishtim to question him about the living and the dead. The man scorpion allows him to pass through the mountain of Mesho. Leaving this world behind, he crosses 11 leagues of darkness before he could see the sun in the 12th league. This is a journey of a soul to find the truth. It exemplifies death and rebirth. Shamash, in the garden of the gods, said to him, quote, "You will never find the life for which you are searching," unquote, page 100 in your text. But Gilgamesh wanted to go on. It was then his encounter with Siduri, the woman of the wine. Gilgamesh reacted violently, lodging his foot in the gate because Siduri barred her door against him with the crossbar. Force is still his automatic reaction, the way he responds to the world. So he arrogantly addressed her, quote, "Young woman, maker of wine, why do you bolt your door? What did you see that made you bar your gate? I am Gilgamesh, who seized and killed the bull of heaven. I killed the watchman of the cedar forest. I overthrew Humbaba, who lived in the forest, and I killed the lions in the passes of the mountain." Page 100 in your text. And Siduri brought him back to himself and his limits as a human. She said, quote, "If you are that Gilgamesh, why are your cheeks so starved? And why is your face so drawn? Why is despair in your heart and your face like the face of one who has made a long journey? Yes, why is your face burned from heat and cold? And why do you come here wandering over the pastures in search of the wind?" Unquote. Gilgamesh came back to himself. So he answered, "And why should not my heart be starved and my face drawn? Despair is in my heart and my face is the face of one who made a long journey." He speaks about the death of Enkidu, that he wanted to look for Utnapishtim. Siduri, another woman in the epic, is represented as a supportive figure who assists Gilgamesh in his dangerous journey to find Utnapishtim after offering him a piece of advice. What she says here deserves special attention. Her discourse is realistic. She stresses the goodness of food, cleaning, clothing, and importance of wife and child. She upholds the social norms of Mesopotamian society. A wise woman speaking in proverbial language, she says, quote, "Gilgamesh, where are you hurrying to? You will never find the life for which you are looking. When the gods created man, they allotted to him death, but life they retained in their keeping. As for you, Gilgamesh, fill your belly with good things day and night, night and day. Dance and be merry, feast and rejoice. Let your clothes be fresh, bath yourself in water, cherish the little child that holds your hand, and make your wife happy in your embrace, for this too is the lot of man." Unquote, page 102 in your text. Siduri's advice is not only realistic and a simple call for pleasure. She's advising him to come to terms with death and life at the same time. Siduri guides him to Urshanabi, the ferry boat man, who will in his turn take him to Utnapishtim, the only man who was granted immortality. Gilgamesh's last chance is in front of Utnapishtim, who transmits to him the story of the flood. This is a secret knowledge, not accessible to anyone, but only to this hero, Gilgamesh, who was 2/3 God and 1/3 man. I'm not going to relate here the story of the flood and compare the story with the story of Noah in the Old Testament. You will discuss this, I'm sure, in your classes. I just want to mention en passant that the flood story is knowledge about the most terrible event in human history. It is knowledge about a terrible truth. The gods can destroy, and one may never understand the reason. A wise man, Gilgamesh, should know this. Gilgamesh heard the secret of Utnapishtim's immortality. He had questions to ask, and Utnapishtim proved to him that he does not have the stuff of immortality. He challenged him to be awake for 7 days, but Gilgamesh failed the test. Utnapishtim then gave him his last chance. He guided him to a magical plant that will restore him to youth. Gilgamesh plunges into the great deep, finds the plant, and brings it to the surface. He calls the plant, speaking to Urshanabi, the antidote to the fear of death. He wants to take the plant to his people for the benefit of the whole community. Is this a beginning of change in Gilgamesh? On his way back to Uruk, Gilgamesh bathes in a pond, leaving the plant on the ground. A snake ate the plant. Her skin shone, and Gilgamesh helplessly lost his last chance. What will he do? Lose all hope? Continue? Or go back to build his city? Gilgamesh sat down and wept. The tears ran down his face, and he realized that he has been betrayed by his humanity. He took the hand of Irshanabi, quote, "O Irshanabi, was it for this that I toiled with my hands? Is it for this I have wrung out my heart's blood? For myself I have gained nothing, not I, but the beast of the earth has joy of it now. I found a sign, and now I have lost it. Let us leave the boat on the bank and go." Page 117 in your text. The story does not end here. Gilgamesh and the boatman push on to Uruk, and on their arrival, Gilgamesh addresses the boatman again. Quote, "Irshanabi, climb up onto the wall of Uruk. Inspect its foundation terrace. Examine well the brickwork. See if it is not of burnt bricks. And did not the 7 wise men lay these foundations? 1/3 of the whole is city, 1/3 garden, and 1/3 is field with the precinct of the goddess Ishtar. These parts and the precincts are all Uruk." Page 117 again. These are the final words of the epic. We have come full circle and to have a sense of finality and completeness. We began in Uruk and we end there. Here, the solid material nature of it all, walls, measurement, and topography tell us that Gilgamesh is back from a world of jeweled trees and monsters and regions not meant for man. He returns to a world made by man, and Gilgamesh, pointing to this man-made world of Uruk, suggests an intuitive of inarticulate perception that the work proper to man and his destiny is to build, to create a world of his own, as well as to die. There is a measure of immortality in achievement, the only immortality man can seek. This perception gives meaning to life and makes whole the wisdom of Gilgamesh. Quote, "He was wise, he saw mysteries and knew secret things. He brought us a tale before the flood. He went on a long journey, was weary, worn out with labor. Returning, he rested. He engraved on a stone the whole story. O Gilgamesh, Lord of Kulab, great is thy praise." Thanks for your attention.